The wedding day revelation. What happens when kindness meets its greatest test? You're about to witness something extraordinary. The dawn ritual. Emily Sanchez slipped into Sunrise Bakery at 4:30 a.m., her footsteps echoing in the pre-dawn silence. While San Diego slept, her hands moved with the precision of a master craftsman, shaping croissants that would make French bakers weep and cinnamon rolls that could mend broken hearts. For 6 years, Emily had perfected more than just her baking techniques. She'd cultivated a secret ritual that defined her very soul. Every morning, without exception, she'd select the finest pastry from her morning batch and pour steaming coffee into a pristine to-go container. Through the back door she'd slip like a guardian angel, placing both items on a weathered bench near the bus stop. Always accompanied by the same handwritten note in her careful script, wishing you a peaceful day. The recipient never varied, an elderly gentleman with silver hair catching morning light and a coat that had seen better decades. In 6 years of this silent dance, they'd never exchanged names. Never spoken beyond polite nods that carried the weight of unspoken understanding. He never begged, never approached customers, never made demands. Simply sat with quiet dignity, waiting. Type, I'm curious, if you want to know what her coworkers really thought about this daily ritual. She's literally throwing money away, whispered Janet from behind the register, her voice dripping with disapproval. Mark my words, that vagrant will take advantage of her bleeding heart, predicted Tom, the assistant baker, while aggressively kneading dough. People like that always do. Sarah from the morning shift shook her head knowingly. She thinks she's Mother Teresa or something. Reality will hit her hard one day. When new management swept in 3 months ago with promises of increased efficiency and profit margins, Emily's supervisor summoned her for a performance review that would change everything. Your personal, charitable activities are admirable, Emily, he said, choosing his words like a diplomat navigating a minefield. However, several customers have expressed discomfort. Perhaps you could channel your generosity toward an established homeless shelter instead. Emily nodded with practiced politeness, her face revealing nothing of the storm brewing within. The next morning, she simply adjusted her routine, arriving 15 minutes earlier to complete her mission before prying eyes could witness her act of rebellion. But secrets have a way of surfacing, and last week, everything shifted. The breaking point. Marcus, the newest bakery employee, spotted Emily returning from her morning mission. With the enthusiasm of someone who discovered buried treasure, he announced loud enough for the entire bakery to hear, she's been feeding that homeless guy for 5 years. Every single morning without fail. A customer at the counter shook her head with a mixture of pity and judgment that cut deeper than any knife. Poor girl. Living in some fairy tale, thinking she's actually making a difference in the world. Emily's hands never paused in their rhythmic kneading, but each word struck like a physical blow. Not because she cared about their opinions, but because they couldn't see what she saw with crystal clarity. A human being deserving of dignity, not a problem to be swept under society's rug. Her mother's voice echoed in her memory, you're too soft-hearted, always picking up strays, always giving away what you've earned. But Emily understood something profound that others missed entirely. But Emily carried a secret knowledge that would soon transform everything these people believed. The mysterious invitation. 2 weeks before her wedding to Marco, a firefighter whose own acts of daily heroism helped him understand her morning ritual, Emily made a decision that raised eyebrows throughout the bakery. She invited everyone to the ceremony, including her harshest critics. Inviting the whole neighborhood? Marco had teased gently, but his eyes sparkled with admiration for her inclusive heart. It was one of countless reasons she loved this man who ran into burning buildings to save strangers. Everyone deserves to witness love, Emily had replied simply. 2 days before the wedding, everything took an unexpected turn. An unmarked letter arrived at the reception venue, hand-delivered by someone who'd vanished before the staff could identify them. The envelope, addressed in elegant script to the bride, Emily Sanchez, contained a card with carefully penned well-wishes and a single enigmatic line that puzzled the wedding planner. Tomorrow I will come not for cake, but to honor a debt that has grown for 6 years. No signature. No return address. Just an haunting familiarity in the handwriting that stirred something deep in Emily's memory, something she couldn't quite grasp. Type I'm intrigued if you want to witness what happened next. The wedding day shock. On her wedding morning, Emily was a whirlwind of nerves and excitement as she prepared in the church's bridal suite. Through the lace-curtained window, she watched guests arriving in their finest attire, family members she hadn't seen in years, childhood friends, co-workers freshly pressed into their formal wear. Then she spotted him. The elderly man from the bus stop stood somewhat awkwardly at the church entrance, transformed by the moment. He wore a threadbare but meticulously pressed suit that spoke of dignity maintained despite hardship. His shoes, though worn, gleamed with fresh polish. His silver hair was combed with careful precision, and for the first time in 6 years, Emily could see his face clearly, weathered by time and hardship yet maintaining an unmistakable nobility. But the guests had noticed him too. Their whispers drifted through the partially open bridal room door like poisonous smoke. Who on earth invited the homeless man? This is inappropriate for a wedding. Don't tell me Emily actually invited him. Is he here looking for handouts? At a wedding? Someone should call security. Emily's heart fractured with each cruel word. Without a moment's consideration for photographers waiting with expensive equipment, meticulously planned processionals, or any other wedding protocol, she gathered her white silk gown in trembling hands and burst from the bridal room. She crossed the church foyer in a flutter of white, her veil trailing behind like wings, ignoring the collective gasp from guests and the frantic protests of her wedding planner. When she reached the elderly gentleman, she enveloped him in an embrace that spoke volumes without words. "I still remember your eyes," she whispered against his shoulder. "That very first morning in 2017 when our paths crossed." He smiled, a genuine, transformative smile that seemed to erase years of pain from his weathered features. "And I remember every single morning you treated me like a human being deserving of kindness." As Emily linked her arm through his to escort him inside, her flustered wedding planner approached with undisguised confusion. "Emily, the ceremony is about to begin. Who exactly is this gentleman?" But before anyone could answer, something happened that no one could have predicted. The revelation. The unmistakable sound of multiple vehicles arriving in perfect synchronization outside the church commanded everyone's attention. The heavy wooden doors at the church entrance swung open with military precision that seemed to defy physics. 12 United States Marines in immaculate dress blues entered in flawless formation. The church fell into cathedral silence. Every conversation died mid-sentence. Someone's champagne glass slipped from nerveless fingers, the crystal shattering creating the only sound in the stunned silence. Their shoes gleamed like mirrors, their white gloves were spotless, their faces set in expressions of solemn dignity earned through years of discipline and shared purpose. They moved as one entity, each step perfectly synchronized with mathematical precision. The lead Marine, a captain with "Duncan" emblazoned on his nameplate, stepped forward with the bearing of a man accustomed to command. He came to rigid attention before Emily and rendered a perfect military salute that could have graced any ceremony at Arlington National Cemetery. On behalf of Alpha Company, 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines, he announced, his voice carrying clearly throughout the church without amplification, "We are here to honor the woman who silently sustained a hero for 6 years. Type I was wrong if you've ever completely misjudged someone." Captain Duncan executed a precise turn, gesturing toward the elderly gentleman at Emily's side. "Allow me to introduce Sergeant Victor Hale, a decorated Marine who single-handedly saved 9 lives during an enemy ambush in Fallujah, Iraq, in 2004. After tragically losing his entire family to a drunk driver in 2016, he chose to disappear from society, never once accessing his military benefits or revealing his true identity." The revelation sent shockwaves through the wedding guests like an earthquake. Whispered judgments transformed into stunned silence. Another Marine stepped forward with ceremonial precision, presenting Emily with an elegant shadow box containing a gleaming medal and a faded photograph that seemed to capture history itself. The image showed a younger Victor Hale carrying a blood-covered Marine through what appeared to be a war-torn street. In the background, unmistakably, was a younger version of Captain Duncan. "Sergeant Hale carried me 4 blocks under intense enemy fire after I took shrapnel to both legs," Duncan explained, his voice steady despite the profound emotion underlying each word. He returned for 8 more Marines that day, making multiple trips despite suffering his own wounds. His extraordinary actions earned him the Silver Star, a decoration he never claimed. Duncan's voice cracked slightly before continuing. If not for his courage that day, I wouldn't be standing here. And if not for your daily kindness, Ms. Sanchez, he might not have survived to witness this moment. The truth unfolds. Emily's carefully applied wedding makeup was beyond salvation as tears flowed freely down her cheeks. I never knew, she whispered, looking at Victor with newfound understanding and awe. That was precisely the point, Victor replied, his voice gentler than she'd ever imagined it could be. I didn't want gratitude for simply doing my duty. After losing my beloved wife and precious daughter, I couldn't bear being around people who viewed me as a hero when I'd failed to save the two most important people in my world. He paused, emotion briefly overwhelming his military composure. But you never asked who I was. Never demanded my story or my credentials. You simply fed me, acknowledged my existence, left notes that gave me a reason to face each new dawn. The Marines had arranged themselves in a perfect honor guard formation, creating a corridor of respect that extended from the church entrance directly to the altar. Captain Duncan addressed the gathered guests, many of whom looked ashamed of their earlier whispers. Ms. Sanchez never knew she was helping a decorated war hero. She simply helped a fellow human being in need, day after day, year after year, without any expectation of recognition, reward, or even acknowledgement. His gaze swept across the assembly, lingering meaningfully on those who had been whispering cruel judgments just minutes earlier. In the Marine Corps, we have a sacred creed: never leave a Marine behind. Emily Sanchez, who never served a single day in uniform, understood and lived this principle better than many who've worn our colors. Type, I owe a debt, if you've ever received something enormous from a seemingly small action. The transformation. One of Emily's bridesmaids stepped forward, tears creating rivers through her makeup. I work with Emily at the bakery. She arrives early every single day to bake extra pastries, paying for all the ingredients herself, just to ensure he had fresh, warm food. She never told anyone about the expense, added a coworker, shame heavy in her voice. We mocked her for it. Called her naive. Said she was wasting money on someone who didn't matter. A wedding guest stood up, overcome by the magnitude of what they were witnessing. We're not just attending a wedding ceremony. We're witnessing a military honor ceremony for civilian heroism. Victor turned to Emily, his weathered hands taking hers with infinite tenderness. I came today to offer you the only gifts I have left, my presence, my truth, and my eternal gratitude. I knew about your wedding because I overheard you mentioning it to a customer. I hope you don't mind that I contacted some old Marine brothers. Emily's smile blazed through her tears like sunshine after a storm. This is the most beautiful wedding gift I could have ever imagined. Marco, the groom, who had been watching this extraordinary scene unfold with amazement, finally approached. He extended his hand to Victor with deep respect. Sir, it would be the greatest honor of my life if you would join our ceremony. Perhaps walk Emily down the aisle. The lasting legacy. Following their honeymoon, Emily made a decision that surprised no one who truly knew her heart. She didn't return to Sunrise Bakery. Instead, she and Marco used their wedding gift money to establish the Quiet Table, a breakfast service specifically for homeless veterans in their neighborhood. There were no photographers documenting their humanitarian work, no press releases announcing their noble mission, no social media campaigns seeking viral fame. Just a simple hand-carved wooden sign bearing carefully chosen words. Feeding one person feeds an entire life that might otherwise be forgotten by the world. Victor didn't appear at the Quiet Table after the wedding, respecting the space Emily had created for others. But each month without fail, Emily received postcards from different locations across the country, each bearing the same message written in his careful script: every breakfast you serve is a salute to human dignity. Thank you for teaching an old soldier about hope, Emily. Captain Duncan later explained that Victor was finally accessing his long-neglected VA benefits to receive proper medical care and trauma counseling. The Marines had helped him secure permanent housing and reconnect with the military brotherhood he had abandoned in his grief. On the first anniversary of their wedding, Emily and Marco arrived at the Quiet Table to find all 12 Marines waiting for them, this time dressed in civilian clothes, each man holding a single white flower. "We've organized shifts," Captain Duncan announced with characteristic efficiency. "We'll be volunteering here regularly. This honor isn't one we'll allow to fade or be forgotten. Type, I will live with kindness, if you believe a small meal can save a great soul." The ripple effect. What had begun as one woman's simple daily act of compassion had blossomed into something far greater than anyone could have imagined. Veterans from across San Diego learned about the quiet table through military networks, a place where they could receive nourishing meals without invasive questions, harsh judgment, or the humiliation of explaining their circumstances. Emily kept Victor's original thank you note in an elegant frame above the serving counter. "Thank you for seeing me as a person." Below it, she had added her own message in matching script: "Everyone who sits at this table has a story worth knowing and a life worth honoring." When a local news crew discovered the quiet table and requested an interview with Emily, she politely but firmly declined. "This work isn't about me or my story," she explained simply. "It's about recognizing and serving the invisible people all around us every single day." On particularly challenging mornings when supplies ran dangerously low or volunteers failed to show up, Emily would close her eyes and remember her wedding day, the moment 12 Marines stood at perfect attention to honor what the world had dismissed as meaningless charity. It provided all the motivation she needed to continue serving. Marco understood her drive completely. As a firefighter, he knew intimately that heroism wasn't always about dramatic rescues or charging into burning buildings under media scrutiny. Sometimes the greatest heroism lived in quiet consistency, showing up day after day, offering kindness without any expectation of recognition, reward, or applause. "You know," he told Emily one evening as they cleaned up after serving their 100th meal of the day, "when I married you, I didn't just gain a wife. I gained 12 Marine brothers and a constantly growing family of veterans who become our extended family." Emily's smile could have powered the entire city. The very best kind of family, the kind you consciously choose and the kind that chooses you back without hesitation. Remember this truth: the homeless individuals we pass on street corners might be former teachers who shaped young minds, nurses who once saved lives in emergency rooms, or veterans who carried wounded comrades through enemy gunfire. Their current circumstances don't erase who they were or who they still are beneath accumulated layers of hardship and loss. Live with intentional kindness, not for recognition or social media praise, but so that someday you might witness 12 people honoring something you never thought worthy of celebration. In our world obsessed with grand gestures and viral fame, remember that authentic heroism often lives quietly in the smallest acts of consistent compassion, delivered faithfully without an audience or applause. Because the greatest heroes often eat alone, unrecognized and forgotten by a world that has lost the ability to see beyond surface appearances.